I apologize for my appearance, but apparently I neglected to uh, give you guys the outline of how to do the chapter presentation template for grade XLSX. And so this is my attempt to do it. I went to record this earlier and discovered I had the wrong file loaded up for the grading rubric. I must have operated out of a different class. But the grading rubric, we're going to grade one another in a professional but helpful manner that looks at things like the visual aids, the quality of the PowerPoints, is it too wordy, et cetera, the clarity of speech. There are a lot of bad speech habits that all of us have. I have bad speech habits. I'm certainly by no means a perfect presenter. I'm not going to win contests for that. My eyes often wander off the stage, and I have this odd habit of waving my hands as I speak, and then going to a closed body stuff. But eye contact. Do I look at the camera periodically, or is my eye always down on the menu bar or in the slides or off looking at my cat or whatever? Body habitus. Am I relatively square to the camera? Have I positioned the camera so that it's in a position, so that it's a good place for me? A lot of people invest in a small tripod that they set over to the side, which gives them an angle look, and then they're much more aware of the camera, and their eye contact can be both to the screen and then to the camera. Questions. I always ask that students ask the audience questions, even in a recorded lecture. I think it just sort of helps people process the material. Here are the facts of this case. Boom, 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 boom. What outcome do you think there might be? Attention. This is a function of all of the above, if you will. If your eye contact is bad, if your slides are too wordy, if your clarity of speech is you don't have a modulation, you have a single tone, or you're rushed, or anything like that, or you're not really engaged the audience, all of those can have a negative impact on attention. Excuse me. Knowledge of subject matter is hopefully you can get that one pretty well. As I said, I grade in the 5 to 6 range using decimal points in between. This pretty much guarantees you're going to get about a 38 or higher from me, which is the object of this is really to get you more comfortable as a speaker, but to give you a success deal. Some people go, "Oh, this is like a participation trophy in grade school athletics, and everybody's in love and all that kind of stuff." Well, yeah, that may be true, but I think here, where we're trying to develop a professional attitude, it is important that each of us feedback professionally to somebody else, and also consider how that feedback is going to be taken. The Toastmasters criticism sandwich is a success model. It talks about, here's what you did well. Here are 1 or 2 things upon which I think you need to at least consider alteration in order to gain improvement. And here's another thing I think you did well. Well, the sandwich, it makes the bread kind of nice. It's the ordinary sandwich that I make at home is not as good as the one I can get at a local bakery. Their breads are better, but because I made my bread better, if you will, the meat of what this person needs to know is going to register with them better. I gave them some positive feedback. Some of the recovery programs also do this. The reason you're an addict is you really probably don't like yourself. There are things about yourself you don't like. So make a list of the things you like about yourself while you're looking at the things you need to improve in your character. And be careful that you do both, because we ultimately want you coming out of this with a better grasp of yourself and also better confidence. So anyway, all of that being said, that's another, it probably didn't need it. I may have explained this well enough, but it is important that you give feedback to people on this. And I do it in an email or you know, what I've gotten to now is once I've done it in one class, I just copy and paste the same email in and then modify the scores and all that kind of stuff. That's fraught with peril because I could make a mistake, but I like to have these last two comments, what I liked about your presentation, how you might be able to improve. And so what we're going to jump to next is everybody's graded you. They've given you your 4s and your 6s and everything else. All right, so what I've given you, let's go back one screen. What I've given you in the assignments folder is this chapter presentation template for grade.xlsx. Well, that's an Excel extension. So we know, okay, we've got to look for an Excel problem. All right, the one we're looking at is chapter presentation for grade. We can see right off the bat, this is not, so it's not set up real well. I don't care that you correct this, but, you know, why not? It's pretty simple to correct. Well, why didn't you correct it, Professor? Think about that. If I give you everything done in advance for you, how much growth is there for you in this? I know I shouldn't be preachy about the purpose of college, but a lot of college students, it seems like to me, kind of want this fill-in-the-blank experience. And that's not what college is about. College is about mastering yourself, and that's a hard thing to do. And so I think a college professor's duty is to kind of point you in the general direction, tell you there's some water over there about 2 miles away, and it's hard to get to, and then let you go and see if you can get there on your own. Because ultimately, your boss doesn't want to do your job for you. They want you to be able to self-start, to initiate, to fit within the guidelines to get it right. All right, so anyway, you could clean this up a little by just expanding the margins, and you'll notice on the cursor, as I come right over the line between columns C and D, it gives me a black line with arrows in either direction, meaning you can move this a little bit. All right, so I just moved that, and now it aligns better. Well, I need to do the same thing here to get that E up at the top. Boom, there it is. All right, so points awarded. I could also highlight all of these and make them the same size, et cetera, et cetera. So what we're now dealing with is we're going to try to build the Excel spreadsheet itself. So here we're going to look at column D is percentage of grade. So what we're looking at is, and let's go, I've got to go double check this one. How much is this worth? This one may be worth more than that. I've got to go back into my into our syllabus and see what we get there. In terms of value of this, because if that 75 is wrong, then we need to modify that right off the bat. Case presentation, it is 125. So let's go back in here. First thing we need to do is say that's wrong. Let's go 1, 2, 5. And then the easiest way to copy something is to notice I've got a cell here. It's got a little green square at the bottom. As I move the cursor right over that little square, I get a double cross, or I get a cross. That says, oh, you want to copy this. And I do. I copy it all the way down, then I delete the cell that I don't need. And, you know, do I really need the separation between professor and students? No, but at least for me, it gives me a visual separation. It makes the work in this a little bit more challenging. Let me look at that rubric again and see how we've divided this up. If we look at the grading rubric, it should say professor 60% and 4 students chosen at random, 10% each. Now here I'm asking you to grade yourself. Should you add that grade in? I don't know. One student who did it decided that they needed a perfect score. Come on. None of us does anything perfectly. And I think we've got to be a little more rigorous in attention to what did I do? What did I find about myself that I think I need to improve? Not about tearing yourself up, but about making yourself a better participant. So here we could modify that. If we're going to have, we got 4 fellow students. I'm pretty good with whatever you guys come up with here. One of the things we could do is we could decide, well, if there's actually going to be 5 of us, let's add me in. And this may not be there for every subsequent class. This class wound up being fairly short. This is pretty going on. My grading, I might ignore my grading for this and just give the grade given by others. But you could, if you want to, modify it some other way. One way to do it is give me 50% of the grade, each student, including yourself, 10%. Another way is make me 40%. Give each student, including each student, is that right? Maybe 40. Each student, including yourself, 12%. Because 60 divided by, so we can do that, how do we figure this out? Well, here. All right, anyway, we can do this pretty simply. What we need to do, this is a quirk of Excel, is that in this, we select the entire column because we're going to now put it into percent. We want every number in there in percent. I'm a finance guy, but so I always add 2 decimal points to percent. The default in Excel is no decimal points. I question that, but I guess that's what they came up with. So let's just see if I did it right. So I just clicked percent and then clicked this increase decimal twice, and it did it. All right, so now what I need to do is I'm going to just add 10% here because I'm going to stand by the original formula. You can modify this any way you want. The math just has to work. Okay, so real simple check is come down here and do an Autosum. Well, what is the sum of all these? You'll notice that Excel has a habit of only grabbing the data that's real close to it. Guess what? I've got 100%. They always talk in the football about, well, we gave 110%, and that's why we won the game. Yeah, that's good if you're getting your head banged around in football parlance, and you've got a couple screws loose. But the reality is we can only give 100%. And for most humans, it's a motivating factor is what the coaches have come up with. For most humans, if we give 80 or 90% of maximum effort, we've actually done a pretty good job. They say that Einstein was an absolute genius because he could access 28% of his brain. Most of us can only get to 10% of it. So anyway, that's a check that this column comes to 100. If I were to modify this, and I'm just going to modify this for explanation purposes, let's just say I want 50% for me, and I do think I should get a grade, and that it should be even. Or all right, so now I've done that. Let's look at, and the problem is this didn't include that last cell. So I've got to add that last cell, and there it is. Okay, now I've fixed that formula. Let's look at another way to do this is we could leave me as 60. And like, when are you going to get to the point, Professor? Well, I don't know that I will. We're going to do a formula here. Equals, what is it, 40 divided by 8. And that didn't work out too well. What's wrong? 40. Oh, it's a bad result there. I got the wrong number there. Anyway, it should be 8. And that gives me this 800, which is a quirk of Excel that you have to guard against. But it gave me the answer. Now I know it's actually 8. And so I could copy this 8 in and drag this down to here. And now we're at 100. So there's a solution if you want to give yourself a grade. You want to keep me at 60%. That doesn't necessarily matter to me. Don't go below 40% for the professor. That's all that I ask. If you want to weight student grades higher, it doesn't matter. You know, let's be honest, the real, you might gain a whole point. Well, a point in a 1,000-point system is relatively trivial. It's less than a rounding error. And so do it your way, but do not give me less than 40% of the grade. All right, so we've checked everything. We've got all our percentage of grade point going. Now what we need to do is let's look back at the way this individual graded me and, you know, total it up. All right, so there were 7 items, each of which was 6. What's my total? So we go back in and we look at, let's just say professor gave you a 40.4. It's a pretty good grade for me. It's really, you know, you've done a pretty good job. Probably your slides are good. Your eye contact's good. You may not have asked a question. I may have hit you all the way to a 5 on that point. All right. Now we've got to fill in everyone else. Well, one student does a 39. Here's a 41. Students usually don't do what I do. So here's somebody who thought you did a great job. You know, 42. They gave you straight across the board. Everything was perfect. And then we've got a 28. Somebody had a bad hair day and had to teach you a lesson. And, you know, because we're using you, maybe you're grading yourself. I actually usually see students have the lowest opinion of themselves. Well, the 37, the 42, the 41, and 39 are all within acceptable grading range. The 28 is not. There really is no way, when I'm telling you to use only 4 through 6, that a student is essentially just not getting anything right. I mean, there should be better. My gut feeling is if a student gave you anything from a 32 or lower, take the average of what the other students did. So here's a simple way to do this. See where that Autosum was? We come up here and we see there's a pull down arrow. Well, wait a minute, cool, there's an average. And look at the default. Now, of course, I set it up this way. I knew that it does this. But look at that default. It picks the 3 other students' scores. We're not going to average ourselves. That's not really fair. We're looking only at what the other students gave us in order to get an average from other grades. And boom, we come in pretty close to a 41. You know, I would just leave it like that. It pretty much tells me that, oh, there was an outlier. Oh, no, what you really ought to do is do a comment. All right? Insert comment, and it was student awarded me a 28 per professor instruct. Per professional instructions, I averaged other grades, period. Notice this is a full sentence too. Don't, just because you're putting a little tiny comment in here doesn't mean you drop academic rigor and you get kind of sloppy. Look at the, you know, I do it periodically. There's always typos. Every semester, I probably do 15 typos over the course of the whole semester. And they'll get posted, and then maybe I cover them later. But, you know, be professional in everything you've done. I don't want that backspace in there. And I'm just going to tab out. and click over, and then it tells me, oh wait, that's a weird looking number. Well, I just mouse over it and boom, it tells me what happened. All right, so this is pretty long. It shouldn't be that long, but this, now we've got to calculate what are the points toward the total. What we're basically dealing with is points awarded over 42 equals y over 7 over 125, solve for y. Okay, we know what the points awarded are, so that's our x, but it's a known, and we know it in each case. So when you multiply all that out, what it really comes to, if you can do cross multiplication, is that it is 125 times 60%, which is the weighting on this person, times points awarded, all divided by rubric points available. And if we look at points toward total, if we do a rough estimate on 60%, that would be a 75, right? So here's 72.14. That looks pretty good. You know, that looks like, oh, we got that formula right. Well, now we can drag this down, and we're going to, because we brought this other student in, we're going to go ahead and use them. And now we find a couple of mistakes. First of all, it's giving me this number thing divided by 0 because there's nothing over here. Yeah, okay. Well, oops. We'll just delete that space. Here, we're lacking something, and that is it's again divided by 0, so we can either type 42 or drag it down. Here, I drag it down. We also don't have this number in there, so we need a 125, right? And now we've got, here's my total. So once again, we go to Autosum. Now it's again not going to go over that dead space and grab the professor score, but we just modify and drag it to give us a different way. We can also type in this formula G3, and all that does is identify a range, go from cell G3, that's not going to work, G3 to G9. Boom. So take all the data in those cells and sum them, perform that operation on all of them. So we'll hit enter. We'll see what we have. You get a 119 out of 125. You know, if you really need to figure out, well, what percentage is that? I leave it to you to do that yourself. That's not a very hard, you know, that's 119 divided by 125 and put it in percentages. You know, that's a good grade. All you have to do now is save the file and submit it to me. I hope that this explains it all. It's 23 minutes to explain things. You know, it took 5 minutes to go back over the rubric to walk you through all this, but hopefully you can split screen this, watch a little video, set up yours, do everything the right way for you. I think I've covered everything. Have a great day.